Phew, it's been a crazy month here at UPvisor. How about you? Welcome to this week's #Finance Friday, where we are talking about testing your ideas, and hopefully if you've been following along with us this month, your ideas should be starting to flow a little bit more freely. Maybe you've gotten into the routine or into the habit of spending a little bit of time every day, or at least once a week, to start brainstorming ideas. If you have, then you are well on your way to making your business more successful and potentially more efficient as well, which is super exciting. But today it's time to start tasting some of those brain farts that you've had, right? So I want to share a simple 5-step plan with some subcomponents that will help you test some of those ideas that you've come up with. Step number 1, sort your ideas. There will be a link that we share in the comments down below that you can go check out. But basically what it's talking about is to sort your ideas based on three things, based on how, now, and wow, right? Okay, so first one, the how. You're testing how difficult it will be to be able to implement this idea. This category consists of ideas that are innovative, but maybe unfeasible, if that's a word. And it's a helpful way for us to set up a few ambitious goals that we will be able to strive for in the future. So that's the first one, how. The second one is now. These are the things that are easy to implement. The ideas are familiar, so you know that they will work well, and they will be easily implementable within the short term, right? And then number 3, the wow factor. So these are ideas that are original and easy to implement. This category describes creative ideas that are relatively simple to execute, and you should try and find and file as many ideas into this category as possible, okay? Because this is really where you're going to be able to stand out a lot. Step number 2, check whether this is going to be a viable idea, a viable product or a prototype that goes along with us, okay? So Google's approach is to spark an idea with imagination, but then fuel it with data. This is so important because it helps us to make sure that this idea that we've got is actually going to be viable and it's worth investing time into. So you can start this process out by doing what they call a pre-mortem analysis. And that is really about talking about how a project can fail even before you have launched it. Because by doing this, you are able to normalize failure. Now, we have spoken about failure before, and I want to just take a few moments and talk about this in a little bit more detail today. So you might have heard me talking about failing fast or even failing forward, but let's just have a quick look at what this actually means. So fast failure, they say, is trying out the skeleton before investing in the whole project and failing at that point in time. It allows you to try new things quickly to allow for fast adjustments and be able to do micro adjustments. You might have heard of the agile approach or a minimum viable product. This is all playing in this space. So it's about thinking big, but then starting small and really breaking it down to a point where it's easily implementable and you can see whether it's going to work just for that phase, okay? So if we just come back to this concept of failure, we need to make sure that we are allowing failure in order to stimulate innovation and creativity. If you think about it for a moment, you take more chances when you are not afraid of failing, right? You'll jump off of the wall if you know that there's this massive mattress that will cushion your fall, right? So if you know that you don't have to be afraid of falling or failing, it will allow you to discover new paths. Now, Amy Edmondson, she is a researcher of psychological safety. She interviewed several executives about their response to failure in their organizations. And the executives acknowledged that failure rarely results from direct blameworthy actions. And on average, the group estimated that about 2 to 5% of failures in their organizations were truly blameworthy. But yet, that same group estimated that 70 to 90% of those failures were still treated as if they were blameworthy. So I want to encourage you to start thinking about failure differently. Model this concept and accept failure to allow everyone in your business that you're working with to feel like it's okay to fail, as long as you learn from it, share what you've learned, and make plans to do things better. And I think that that can go a long way towards extending grace to ourselves in our business, right? Failure is okay. And in fact, it is encouraged because it is in that process that you are learning. And talking about learning, step number 3 is about establishing your learning costs. Now, learning costs are basically talking to the fact that you can provide training to prevent the mistake from happening, or you can allow the mistake to take place to allow the learning. Think about which one is going to be more cost effective. If it's going to be a really expensive mistake, then maybe getting the training is a better option. But actually, if it's a low risk item, then maybe it's not even worth going through the whole training process and just learn on the job, right? So if you think of your childhood and the things you did before you knew that they would hurt, like touching a hot stove pan or something, then one day it finally happened. You got hurt doing that thing that you probably shouldn't have been doing, and maybe even your parents told you not to. But once you did that, you always knew that you could get hurt, and someone probably told you would, but it wasn't until you knew that you actually could get hurt that you were able to learn a lesson from that. So this is experiential learning that is associated with failure. And you will remember that pain for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not going to go put my hand on top of a burning light bulb anymore. I learned my lesson. Okay, and then step number 4 is, okay, so now we've thought about failure, and we're acknowledging that failure is normal and we're wanting to learn out of this process, but also make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Like, if this whole idea had to work out, what are you going to do then? And what are the steps that you need to take from there? So try to set a few interim deadlines that will allow you small scale failure and learning opportunities without it being an absolute outright failure for the entire project. Okay, this is really the key to make sure that you are improving consistently. Okay, so if you're building in those small little deadlines, or milestones, you are allowing yourself to fail in that phase, make the changes quickly, and then move forward. Okay, as opposed to finding out that that's this huge problem at the end. Okay, then step number 5. This is the final step. Follow up and process your failures to optimize learning. Like, what's the point of having failed but not actually getting anything out of it? So there are a few after action review questions that you can ask yourself as you're going through this process. 6 ones I'll mention. What was supposed to happen? Okay, think about the objective of what you were trying to achieve. Secondly, what actually did happen? And then number 3, what caused it to happen? Number 4, what lesson did you learn out of it? Number 5, is there a way to either sustain that? Maybe this was an accidental mistake that was actually really positive. Or alternatively, what can you do to improve on that? Okay, and then step number 6, what are the corrective action steps that you need to take? Or alternatively, you can use the KWL diagram, and again, we'll link this into the comments down below. And it basically thinks about 3 questions. What do I know? What do I wonder? Okay, so there you're starting to think about some educational input. And then what did you learn through this whole process? So what I know, what I wonder, and what I learned. So I love this final quote as I close out today's session by Winston Churchill, and he says, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal, but it is the courage to continue that counts." So let's go get out there and let's go test those ideas. I so look forward to next week when we will be wrapping this up and we'll be chatting about how we are going to start executing some of those ideas. Until next week, bye.